Go, Mike.
I think you all know the reason that I'm here. I am running for the 9th Congressional District. It's going to be an interesting race. And I will tell you, the first question I usually get asked isn't, why are you running? You would think that people would ask, why are you running? But the first question that I'm actually asked is usually, how do you expect to win against Robert Pittenger with his legendary war chest of unlimited finances? And I tell people, look, all I need is 5 people to donate $1 million apiece, and I can take this guy on any day. Okay, the reality is he spent over $3 million in the last race. It was $3.2, $3.3 million, and he turned out about 35,000 votes. When you have to spend that much money to get people to turn out, it means you've really got to do a sales job on people. Well, right now, he's got a voting record. And that's what I'm running against. I don't have to compete on the money. What I have to compete in is on his record. And we're going to go over some of those things in his record. Because, honestly, I know that there were stories about his land deals and what he does as far as... that stuff doesn't bother me. As I said, I think we tweeted out a few weeks ago, it doesn't bother me that he spent $2.3 million of his own money running for Congress. What bothers me is he spent $1 trillion of our money since he's been there. And he's another guy who says he's fiscally conservative, but yet votes for debt ceiling increases. And when you do that, folks, it's game over. Because this country can't afford it. Folks, there are groups all over the country that would love to see a constitutional conservative be an establishment guy. And I'm telling you that Robert Pittenger has framed the argument to be the establishment versus the constitutional conservatives. And I will take that battle any day, because I believe that this district is more conservative than he realizes. He might be a fine candidate if he was in Massachusetts or Maine, but we're not that. We're Charlotte, North Carolina. We are the 9th district here, and I'm telling you, we are the hornet's nest. And I think people in this district are upset with moderate people in Congress and fiscally irresponsible people. And when you hand when John Boehner handed President Obama $1 trillion blank check, does everybody remember a few weeks ago? Right, President John Boehner was quoted as whistling zippity doo dah. This is in the paper when he was able to pass what's called a clean debt bill, which, in other words, he handed President Obama $1 trillion blank check, no spending, curbs. Now, folks, let me tell you something. How many times can we afford to do that? Okay, and I'm going to tell you that Robert Pittenger has buddied up with the likes of John Boehner. He voted for him as Speaker of the House. I'm going to tell you, and be on the record as telling you, I will not support John Boehner as Speaker of the House. We can do better. So what are the issues? Is it the debt ceiling? Yeah, it's the debt ceiling. But what's the big question on everybody's mind? Obamacare, right? We know that it's a disaster. And here's what they do in Congress, and there's a great book by Tom Coburn. It says how Washington turns outsiders into insiders. And he was a congressman who served his term limits and then retired after the term limits. Then he ran for Senate, and he wrote a book on how Congress works. And he said they specifically design votes so that they vote multiple times on any given subject to provide political cover. Now, I really need you to understand this, because, folks, if I'm going to win this race, we're going to have to pull the curtain back and take a look at the man behind the curtain that I'm running against. They structure votes. In other words, they'll add an amendment, they'll modify it, they'll change it a little bit so that they take 2 or 3 votes so that Congresspeople, Senate and House of Representatives, can vote on a bill both ways. They'll vote for it and they'll vote against it. Right. If you're looking at me like that's crazy, that's what Washington has become. They will, and they do it intentionally to provide political cover, so that Mr. Pittenger could come up with a straight face and say, I voted against Obamacare. Well, he did. But guess what? When it counted, when the government was shut down, and they were trying to recruit all of the representatives and all of the Republicans to stand together and say, if we stand together, we could defund Obamacare once and for all, guess what? Mr. Pittenger voted for it. And that's what's going on in Congress. People are voting for and voting against to have political cover. Well, I'm tired of political games. I think you stand your ground, and if they want to shut the government down over it, then shut it down. Hell, 98% of what they're doing is unconstitutional anyway. Maybe I think I've worked out the numbers. It's actually about 74% of what the federal government does is way outside the boundaries of their constitutional limits. And if we have non-essential personnel in our government, when you're $17–18 trillion in debt and you have non-essential personnel, I think Moses said it best. Let my people go. Let them go, man. Get these people out of government. There are complete departments that could be shut down and we would not see any significant change in our lives for the worse. We would see tremendous change for the better. Get the Department of Education gone. It's not working. It hasn't worked. It was an experiment and it failed. And I think most people know that. And we could save, billions and over time, hundreds of billions of dollars by shutting down departments that have no reason to exist according to the Constitution. But here's what happens is believing in the Constitution has become an extremist point of view. Well, I want you to know, folks, there are dozens, if not, I'll say dozens of representatives in Congress who believe in the Constitution, who are fighting day in, day out. I told you I met with Justin Amage, Thomas Massey, there's other guys, Braun, Trey Gowdy is a good guy locally here, Mick Mulvaney's a good guy. There are dozens of guys in Congress now, but you know what they need is more numbers, because what matters is support. So what are the other issues? You've got Obamacare, which he's obviously voted on both sides of. He voted to fund the government, raise the debt ceiling a couple of times. Then there's a personal favorite of mine that when I saw it, I was incredulous. Mark Meadows had circulated, was it Meadows? It was the NSA spy. There was actually Meadows was on the healthcare where he presented a letter to, you can let that go for a second. Where Mark Meadows was the one that circulated a letter that said, if we, Mr. Boehner, if we all stand together, we can defeat Obamacare. Pittenger would not sign on to it. Then there was the NSA spying. They presented a bill that said that NSA would need a warrant or a court order to spy on American citizens. Sounds reasonable, right? It's called the Fourth Amendment. Illegal search and seizure. Mr. Pittenger voted against it. So I'm going to tell you, we have a 4-point plan that we're running on, and we've documented everything. Basically, you'll see it here. Obamacare, he voted to fund Obamacare. I voted to defund it. The debt ceiling, he voted to increase the federal debt on several occasions. I would vote to decrease the debt. On the NSA spying, he voted no to limit them from spying on American citizens without a warrant. I'm going to strongly support the Fourth Amendment. And as far as John Boehner, I share with you that the fellow that handed President Obama a blank check for $1 trillion, heck no, we need somebody in there with the courage to stand up. I've stood up. I've stood up to the establishment here, okay, with Sue, and I know, like I said, she's a beloved figure here, love her to pieces, but she lost the fiscal conservative edge. It felt like we needed a change. And now I'm standing up to Mr. Pittenger. I'm not intimidated by his bankroll. We need about $145,000, $150,000. All we need to do is let the people of the 9th District know there's an alternative. In fact, I've had several people, I had one guy in particular came up to me, he said, boy, he goes, you missed an opportunity. And I said, what's that? He said, do you know you can actually control the way your name appears on the ballot? And I said, well, yeah, when you sign up and put in your filing fee, when you file, you put in how you want your name appeared. And he said, what'd you go, Mike Steinberg, Michael D. Steinberg, what did you put in there? I said, I think we put in Mike Steinberg. He goes, you just should have put in not Pittenger. and then people would have walked into the booth, they would have said Pittenger, not Pittenger, and flipped that switch. And folks, here's the thing, is I do believe we're going to get 20% of the vote just by not being Pittenger. All we then need is another 31%, and we're done. And I'm telling you, we can reach the people. Now I know with the Senate race, a lot of people are going to be turning out, but they don't really have that vested interest in the congressional race as they do with the Senate race. So what we need to do is reach those people, let them know that there's a true conservative alternative, and guess what? We can win this thing. I will have to give props out, by the way. I guess I should have done this earlier, but my posse team, I don't know, what's the hip term these days? My colleagues. But you met Troy, you met Greg, a good friend of mine. Scott Saunders is a tremendous supporter and has been with me through every one of my endeavors and been just invaluable. Valley Bubeck has been functioning as my campaign manager and doing an amazing job. Donovan's been working on our website and doing all the techno-geek stuff that is way over my head. And Chuck Suter is probably the guy who's almost single-handedly responsible because he was the one that got Pittenger on tape and asked him a yes or no question. Will you vote to defund Obamacare, yes or no? And after a little equivocating, Mr. Pittenger looked into the camera and he said no. Because Harry Reid wouldn't like it. That's what he said. Harry Reid will never let it go down in the Senate. Well, let me tell you something. That's not the way you fight battles. You fight battles by taking on the battles that need to be fought, win or lose. The history of this country was never, is it about, do we have enough to win? It was always, are we doing the right thing for the right reason? And when you do the right thing for the right reason, if you have to go down, you have to go down. And if he tears me apart like he did Jim Pendergraft, well, I'm putting my life on the line, at least my reputation and my character on the line. I have no idea what he'll come up with, or what he'll twist, or what pictures he'll grab off the internet, from Facebook or whatever, and how he's going to try and spin this. But when it comes down to the record, he's got one. And I'm running on it. I'm running against it.